I am just finishing up packing for the Public Land Challenge. I was hoping to leave last night, but I just couldn't make it happen with work. So now the plan is one more day of work today, and then this video will be uploading, so you should be able to see it this afternoon. And then I'll be driving down to southeast Minnesota to meet up with Dan Infalt, Tyler and Joe from the Hunting Beast, and also the Hunting Public. And the idea behind this whole Public Land Challenge was sort of an idea between Dan and Aaron from the Hunting Public. They basically wanted to get together a group of guys from various areas that are fairly successful hunting public land and get them all together and see how everybody handles a new situation, new terrain, new land, that type of thing. And so the dates for this were like the 20th through the 26th. So obviously, like right now it's the 20th. I won't be able to obviously start till the 21st. Those guys are already down there doing some scouting, but I know that they're getting some really heavy rain right now. So that's going to affect, their hunting plans for today, I would imagine. But anyways, I just want to give you guys a real quick background on kind of the prep work that I've done for this hunt. One of the ideas and goals of this sort of collaboration is to let you guys kind of see how each person handles what's going on and how they handle hunting this new habitat, new terrain. And for me, it started a few weeks ago when I first, got the invite to go to this challenge. I basically spent a lot of time online. I've never been to that region of the state, the southeast corner of the state, to hunt. I did a bass fishing tournament down there in college on the Mississippi River, and the one thing I learned from that is that water levels on that Mississippi can fluctuate very wildly, even in a very short amount of time, which, if you're hunting river bottom, can have a big effect on things, obviously. But what people most commonly associate the southeast part of Minnesota with is the bluff country. It's right across the river from Buffalo County, Wisconsin, so if you can imagine the type of habitat that Buffalo County has, it's the exact same stuff over in southeast Minnesota. And the other thing is that the southeast part of the state has had antler point restrictions now for a few years. So there's a decent number of older class bucks around. And in fact, the only reason I think that probably this location isn't more of a destination across the Midwest for a lot of other people is just the fact that they have the firearm season coincide with the rut, which for a lot of people isn't very appealing for an out-of-state hunt. Going through the map, I wanted to be sort of prepared. So I marked a bunch of spots in sort of the hill country, the traditional stuff you'd think of down there. Also a bunch of spots in the river bottoms. Also a bunch of spots, well, I guess not a bunch of spots. There's a little bit of marsh there, but not much. But I wanted to try and give myself a lot of options and just kind of see beforehand once I get down there, get some boots on the ground, then I can kind of hopefully fine tune it a bit. But from looking at the wind finder website, your two most common winds down there, by far, northwest, associated with your cold fronts, and then your southeast winds. So for most of the hill-specific bedding locations I looked at, I just focused on mostly those two winds, picked out a whole bunch of points that would correspond with those wind directions, leeward side points, and then I basically just went through them and tried to draw an access route from either a road or a parking lot or something and said, can I basically get to this spot to hunt this particular bed without getting picked off? If no, I just crossed off the list. There's enough spots down there that it isn't worth pursuing. But then there's a narrowed down list, and then from that I'm thinking, well, there's two things that could further narrow these down. One would be stuff that's really remote, hard to get to, maybe you got to cross a couple big valleys. Or two, you get some of these spots that are overlooking people activity. A lot of these beds overlook parking lots, they overlook roads, they overlook little farmhouses. And so I tried to further narrow down into those two. And apart from deer hunting, so something that's really popular down in that region of the state, especially, it's popular here too in the Twin Cities, but small game hunting, especially squirrel hunting. I would venture to guess there's probably more squirrel hunters running around with rimfire rifles than there are actually bow hunters this time of year. And so because of that, you can't necessarily, when you're in hill country, always just walk across water to sort of distance yourself from those squirrel hunters. So that, in my mind, is kind of making me think, rather than focus on the stuff that's overlooking, human activity, maybe I'm better off hunting stuff that is sort of more secluded, harder to get to. But again, that's something I'm going to try and hopefully confirm or get some intel on once I get down there and get boots on the ground. Of course, if I go river bottom route or marsh route, then that's obviously a way to get away from squirrel hunters too. So because of that too, I'm basically bringing a whole bunch of different stuff to be able to utilize. I'm bringing a small John boat with a little 6-horse motor. I'm bringing my kayak. I'm bringing a mountain bike just to try and give myself options in terms of getting into some other spots. And I know a lot of the guys that are going to be in this group are probably thinking outside the box. So, even though southeast Minnesota is sort of known as the hill country place, I wouldn't be surprised if there's guys trying to get to some other stuff that maybe isn't as obvious to other people that are going to hunt the area. So that'll be kind of interesting for me to see, if there's various guys picking the same spots that they want to go to, how we're going to sort of manage that ahead of time. And along that same train of thought, hills versus river bottom and marsh and that type of stuff. If this hunt was planned in like early November versus later September like it is, totally different ideas for kind of the locations and spots. Historically, I've never really done all that great in hill country early season for mature bucks. Does, small bucks like that doe I shot last weekend, that was hill country. But I've never really had great success on the hill country for mature bucks. Marsh country, I feel like it's a lot easier to set up early season, but then closer to the rut, those flip-flop, and I find that it's easier for me to see more deer in hill country type terrain and on those really hard natural terrain funnels like deep cuts and ravines and cliffs and stuff like that than marsh. So that's kind of an interesting dynamic too, is just to see sort of early season how everybody goes about this particular hunt. More than anything, I think for me, I'm just really excited about the camaraderie and learning experience that this might provide. I mean, Dan Infeld, I've been following his stuff since, I was in high school. And his hunting styles have made a really big impact on how I still continue to hunt to this day. So I've only met him once in person. It'll be really great to actually share camp with him, hunting public, just a super fun group of guys it looks like to be able to hang out with. And even if I come out of this trip without firing an arrow, if I learn something, that's a big plus for me, and I consider it a successful trip for sure. And plus, the other thing for me too, since I live in Minnesota, if I do or do not shoot a buck on this trip, that will have an influence on my entire rest of the season within the state, because Minnesota is a 1 buck state. So that means if I shoot one this weekend, I probably won't even hunt Minnesota for the rest of the year other than the metro hunts, and I'll just focus on Wisconsin and Missouri. But I'm really looking forward to it. I'll try and make update videos and Instagram posts and Facebook posts as much as I can while I'm down there. So make sure you're following the channel and social media. Make sure you're following the Hunting Beast. Make sure you're following the Hunting Public as well. I'm sure they're going to be pumping out a lot of content while we're down there.